Hello and welcome. This is Bhaskar from Pharma Growth Hub. Today we are going to discuss about something called as a core shell columns in HPLC. Now these are the columns which are manufactured by using the core shell particles. So we'll talk about what is exactly mean of the core shell particles and how they differ from the porous particles. We'll also talk about who has invented this core shell technology and who has actually commercialized this technology at the very first time. So the concept of superficial or core shell stationary phase was introduced by Horvath et al. In the late 1960s. So invention is late in 1960s. However, the commercialization of this technology has took a long time. And in 2006, Hello has actually introduced this technique into the market. What is the advantage of using the core shell particles? The first is the fast analysis. You are going to reduce the analysis time by using the core shell particle columns. And as you are reducing the analysis time, the solvent reduction is going to get reduced. And it is very important to also note that the core shell particle also improves the peak symmetry and the plate count. The resolution will also get increased with the help of usage of the core shell particles. The another important advantage of using the core shell column is the low back pressure. And because of this low back pressure, you can also use these columns onto the HPLC. Until 3 micron columns, you can use this column onto the HPLC with the traditional requirement of around 400 bar to 600 bar. It is also very important to note by using the 5 micron core shell particles, you will be able to achieve the efficiency of 3 micron porous particles. 5 micron core shell particles performance is equal to 3 micron fully porous particles performance. That means what? You can achieve the efficiency of UPLC by using HPLC with the core shell particles. So that is the advantage of the core shell columns. So this is the solid core, a spherical silica particle, and on this particle we'll have the porous sides which is going to act as the interactive sites for our analyte. And this is the traditional the silica bonded stationary phase where you will have the pores of around 60 angstrom to 120 angstrom or maybe around 400 to 500 angstrom dependent on to the size of the molecule. This porous particles actually helps in interacting our analyte with the active stationary phase like C8 or C18. And this is a very popular particle size around 5 micron, but there were columns manufactured with the 10 microns which are not manufactured in today's time, as we're moving from the lower particle size column like 4 micron, 3 micron, 2 micron and sub 2 micron particle columns too. Now this is something called as a core shell or a superficial core shell. So what is the meaning of this core shell particle? In the core shell, you will find there is a solid core at the center. So there will be no porous material coated onto the solid part. I mean, there is no porous material present at the core of the center. And let us say that the diameter of this solid core is around 3 micron. And on this solid core, you will coat the porous silica layer. On this particular 3 micron solid core, the another porous silica layer will be coated. And this silica has the porous part so that the interaction of our analyte can get happen with the stationary phase. So in case if you want to have the 5 micron core shell, now what is the effective porous layer of the silica particles or this the porous layer of the silica material? It is around 1 micron versus 5 micron in case of the fully porous. isn't it? So that is the difference between fully porous particle and the core shell particle. Let us now understand how this core shell particle helps in increasing the efficiency of our analysis. So this is the traditional fully porous column. This is a column containing a fully porous silica particles. Now once this sample gets, and this is the representation of the core shell particles. A HPLC column manufactured by using the core shell particles. I hope you understand the difference between fully porous particle column and the core shell HPLC column. Now once you inject the analyte onto the column, there is going to be a eddy diffusion. Means what? The particle or the analyte is going to have the longer length until it's elute out of the column. Now, why this longer length? The first reason is, especially in case of the fully porous particles, the particles are not consistent in the shape. There could be some small particles, there could be some bigger particles. And the average could be, let us say, 5 micron. But the variation in the particle size is quite high in case of the fully porous particles. The another important reason for the longer distance for the traveling through the column is the presence of the pore not only on the surface of the particle but inside the core of the particle also. And because of that, our analyte can have the longer interaction and hence it stays the longer time onto the fully porous HPLC. It travels the longer distance. It requires a longer distance to travel. And because of this longer distance, what happens? Our sample bandwidth get increased. And out of the increased bandwidth, you can expect the broader peak. The width at the peak base will be much, much higher. But what happens once the sample solutions get injected onto a column containing core shell particles? Now, these are the particles which actually have the very minimum difference into the particle size. The particles are in the equal size. This is one advantage. The second important advantage is what now the the analyte is going to get interacted only onto the surface of these particles because these porous active sites are only present onto the surface. So the analyte will not be able to penetrate through the entire core of the particle. And because of that, it will travel the less distance as compared to the fully porous particle column. And as it travels the less distance, the diffusion is going to get minimized. The peak width at the base is going to get minimized. And out of that, you can expect a sharper peak as compared to the fully porous particle. So this is a very important principle because of which you expect the sharper peak in the core shell particle HPLC column. Now to get the complete advantage of the core shell columns, you need to optimize your HPLC systems in terms of reducing the extra column volume. Because if you have the extra column volume more, whatever maybe gets eluted out of the column may get further diluted and your bandwidth can get increased because of this extra column volume. So what you can consider to get the optimum efficiency by using the core shell columns? The first one is use a lower volume injection loop. Your injection loop should be as or closer to your injection volume. Use zero volume finger tight fittings because these fittings can also increase the extra column volume, especially the fittings which connects your columns. That fittings has to be zero volume tight fittings. The third is very important, that the internal diameter of your tubes which connects your injector port to the column, and again the connection between column and detector. See, the bigger is the inner diameter, the more will be the extra column volume. So rather than using 0.01 inch diameter tubings, you can go for the 0.05 inch inner diameter tubings and look at the difference in the volume. 0.3 microliter per inch with 0.05 inch versus 1.3 microliter per inch with the 0.01 inch inner diameter tubings. Use a lower volume UV flow cell or the fluorescence detector cell to minimize your extra column volume. So lower is the extra column volume, better is going to the efficiency with the core shell columns. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please let me also know what is your view on this particular topic.